Hello, it is I, Neil Smith, the Dandy DJ. No, that's actually my wife, Michelle, chewing on stuff. I'm here with a new unboxing. And what am I doing today? What came today? No, it's not batteries. It is from Onstage stands. It is the SS7920 dual mount speaker brack. Speaker brack. Well, let's help them out here.
Maybe it's the cheaper version. They can't afford the T.
I guess so. There we go. How about that? Maybe Onstage stands need some help in the packaging department. Anyway, let's unbox this and see what we got to this. Here, we got this side undone. I haven't had a look at it yet. I've been looking at these for a while. And there it is. No assembly required. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing in my circumstance, because I don't want to use these for speakers. Would you be so kind as to pull the sleeve off of that? What I want to do is I like to mount my Chauvet Gigbars, one facing frontwards to go out to the dance floor and audience, and the other one to go against the wall to, make splashes of color against the wall, which is why I got this, so I could put it on top of my light stand, have one Gigbar there and one Gigbar there, but they're a little far apart for me. So let's see. Do these come off? Do they screw off? They do not. They are welded. They are welded in place. Are we sure about that? They are welded in place, which is not the greatest news, but also not the worst, because they're not that deep. And it does feel a little better constructed than most Onstage stuff I've had in the past, which is usually kind of cheapy. So you've got the welds down here, and then you've got like this rubbery plastic ring at the bottom, I guess, to make the speaker stick on there better. And then you got this clamp right here, which I guess is a decent. It's better than a lot of clamps I've seen, and if that wears out, it should be pretty darn easy to replace, because it's a screw and a nut. So
feels pretty good quality.
Yeah, I mean, the Onstage stuff is known for being kind of slapped together, but in this case, it feels all right. So I'm gonna put it to the test, and we're gonna see if it works well for mounting 2 Gigbars. And here we are in my workshop, and here it is. I gotta tell you, this feels more solid than what I expected from Onstage stands. Okay, so this is my Chauvet Gigbar tripod. A few years old. We'll just slip this right over the top. Now normally the T-bar goes like this, but I mount my lights front and back. So maybe I won't have to do any surgery on this. I was trying to get them just like a hand breadth apart, because I got tired of using 2 stands. So we'll do a little experimenting here and see what we got here. And we'll see how we'll crank it down. It's decent. I mean, we don't really need to crank it that bad. So here we go. It's on there, and I'm going to put a couple of Gigbars on there and see if it'll support them. Okay, one concern I had was that putting one on, it would put uneven weight and do bad things. But you see, I've got one leg extended there, and I just kind of tugged on that, and it felt pretty darn solid. So I think I'm good with this. Let's see what happens. All right, there it goes. And there's just one on there, and it doesn't feel bad. Well, I will say the weight is indeed unevenly distributed, and I didn't really have those legs locked down as good as I should have. But there you go, and it is. We've got just one Gigbar mounted on there. And I'll get the other one out and mount it on the back. So here we are with 2 Gigbars mounted on the T. One pointed at the wall, one pointed up front, and that's the way I like to do it. The only problem is normally when I do it with 2 stands, I kind of put the legs like through each other, and then I only have about a hand's width, a single hand width between the two, and that works out really well. This is going to force me to come further away from the wall than I normally like, because a lot of times I'm very tight on space. So what I think I'm going to end up doing is getting some mount pieces, because I'm guessing that these are going to be hollow in here, so I won't be able to screw, but get some of those parts and then mount them in closer, drill through, mount them like up through the bar, and then hacksaw off the ends. So I think that's going to be my next stage in this, but at least I have proof of concept. And there you go, 2 Gigbars mounted. Now that you got, the only way to really make this work is make them front and back, because if you try to angle them, it's not good. It just, I've already tried that. Just anyway, onward and upward we go. Okay, so here is my plan after giving it some thought here to get these moved in closer to each other. One there, one there. It's going to have to involve a hacksaw. So I could buy these mounts online, but they're like $10 each. So that's going to up the cost of this thing to $40 if I do that. Need to get those mounts and then a couple bolts and all that stuff to go right in here. So what I think I'm going to do instead, since I'm going to hacksaw on this anyway, I'm going to hacksaw this off right about there. I'll pop this cap off and see if we've got anything under there, if that's just welded to the top. I think it's just welded to the top. And I can make a decision whether or not I want to cut that plate out, because I think there's going to be a plate under there. I think it's, and then just put a bolt up through there and have it held with the bolt up through the plate of steel, or if that's hollow in there going up through. So I won't know until I get this cover off, and I hope some of that made sense. So I'm going to get a screwdriver, pry this cover off, and see what we've got under there. But ultimately I'm going to hacksaw this off and then bolt it back on over here, and same with the other side, and then hacksaw off the excess. Okay, the moment of truth. What's behind this end cap? Very interesting indeed. Do you see what I see? Not only is this welded there, so we have a plate across the bottom, but it appears that we will not have to drill a hole for a bolt. So it's got a hole right under there that a bolt could go into. Look at that. So just put something that's slightly oversized so the threads grab in there and we are in business. Which also means that I now have to cut this off the top plate of steel. Either that, or I could cut this whole thing off, but that'll just make it bulky. So I just want to cut that top plate off. Be a little more work, but I think it'll be worth it. So here we go. Okay, I am trying to remove my Gigbars from here, and this little plastic sleeve that they're putting down at the base of this is grabbing onto it, so I'm having trouble pulling it up off. So when I get this up off using both hands, I am going to get rid of those little plastic sleeves as well, because I don't like that. I just want to be able to lift it off with ease. So after many days, I finally got through that with the hacksaw. Just doing a few swipes at a time every time I went through, but I still need to get off the rest of this plate. And this is going just a little too slow for me. So I went by Harbor Freight. I found these things. They say they cut through metal. Diamond cutting discs. I'm going to see how they do in my little Dremel tool. Although it's not a Dremel tool, it's a Wen tool. Gonna see how that goes, because I'm getting tired of hacking on that thing slowly and slowly and slowly. So let's put some power behind it, see what we can accomplish. Alright, well, I got the attachment on. The problem with a lot of these attachments is that they tend to be, very brittle and, very thin and small. I mean, they're small. It's a small tool. And I'm just worried this thing's going to just start breaking apart and flying apart the second I start to use it. So, Let's try it. I can only film a little. I'm going to try to film a tiny bit of this, but then I got to get both hands on it and put the camera down. Otherwise, this is not going to be good. I have no idea what's going to happen when I start. So here I go. Okay, I'm going to put it down now. Show you some progress here in a second. Okay, so I've been working on this thing for a couple of minutes now with the rotary tool. And on steel. This is steel. And yeah, I mean, I got a little groove going on here. But actually, I think the better idea is for me to get my keyhole saw here and just work that in the groove. This thing, it's just not making a whole lot of progress. And I'm really afraid that thing's going to fly apart and hit me in the face. So I'm going to do this by hand. Well, after about 10 to 15 minutes of going to town with my keyhole saw here with the hacksaw blade in it, well, I got through that side. So that tells you what I've got to do over here. And then once that's done, I've got to do it. I've got that whole thing off. I've got to do it to the other side. And then I'm going to have to chop this thing clear off right about here and right about here. Here and about here, and we'll measure it out correctly, and then move those things in and bolt them in place. And then, maybe just then, we'll be cooking with gas. Well, this is pretty cool. Once I got a groove worked in on this side, the last remaining side, and then I got it cut to about right there through with my keyhole saw and also my hacksaw kind of going back and forth. I started just, since I already had the other two sides loose, I started kind of rocking this back and forth. And because, you know, it had a weak line there, it eventually came out right along the line. I was able to pull it off. So all I had to do is file the rough edges there. And this one's off and ready to be put set aside. And I'm ready to yank the one off the other side. So fishing around in my old spare nuts and bolts and stuff, I found some old rusty bolts. It's okay, they won't be seen. I'm going to clean them up a little bit before they go in. And found some different size washers. This smaller washer fits perfectly inside the tube. As you can see, perfect fit inside the tube. And underneath that, I have a rubber washer because I don't have any lock washers handy. And I don't really want to spend any more money than I have to. So the rubber washer is going to put pressure on there and collapse so that it locks the whole thing into place and keeps pressure on there so that the nut doesn't back itself out. And then this larger washer right here is pretty much a perfect fit, you know, to go in there, even though it doesn't really have to be, but a nice big washer just for good stability. So that's what I got going on for bolting it. I got this one already fed in there, ready to get locked down. But I'm going to have to work on those edges with the file, though, before that happens. And once it's all locked in place, I'll hit the edges with a little spray paint, and you won't even know a thing. So I've gone through this process. Discovered that if you make your initial cut with the rotary tool, make sure you use a diamond blade. And it kind of helps make a path for the hacksaw to get through. I used only the hacksaw on this side right now, and it followed the path pretty well. That I made a small groove with the Dremel tool. Just too much for the Dremel tool to get through, but the hacksaw, you know, with a little while did fine. So now I'm back to my final side on this one. And you see I've made a groove with my Dremel tool. With my rotary tool. And so I'm not going to use the hacksaw. Instead, I'm going to do what I did last time. I started hacksawing on this side, but I discovered that because, you know, it's going to break along the weakest point, so I can just take this, since those two sides are gone, I should just be able to, see if I can do this while I'm on camera here. I might need both hands for this, but if I just kind of go back and forth and work it, I should be able to break this thing off. Let me work on this with both hands and I'll come back with the camera. Okay, maybe 15 seconds have gone by. I worked on this with both hands. It does appear to be bending up right along that little groove I cut. So I'll see if I can get it with one hand now. That way I can break it off on camera and make for a good video here for you. See what happens. I'll just have to work this for a minute. See if I can keep it in focus here. And it should just break right along the weakest point. And there it is. And I just clean that up with my file, and we should be good. See, it's got a little lip on there, but it's not too much. I should knock on that with my file, and I should be good to go. And ready to get on with my next phase, which will be to figure out exactly where the cut is, how far apart I want these lights, and to cut this off and make a nice, clean, straight cut. And that one I'm going to have to be careful with and do it really nice. So I'm going to mark across the top and down once I measure out exactly where I want it. So now I have to figure out how far apart I want the two lights, since they'll be back to back. So I've got it face down on the chair. Now I know when I've put it on two different stands and done them back to back, the perfect width between them was about the width of my hand. And I have measured the width of my hand. I'll go ahead and do that. And it's about, and I want to be generous here. I want to give a little extra. So we're going to say about 5 inches. My hand's about 5 inches apart. So we want the backs of these to be 5 inches apart, but that's not the whole story, because although the back of the unit is going to be 5 inches from the back of the other unit, there's still some space down. We've got to figure out where the center of that is. So therefore, we're going to have to kind of do it like this. We can kind of eyeball it. It doesn't have to be exact, but it appears to be. See if I can do this with the camera. Okay, I have the camera there. Maybe another. Well, this knob right here appears to be about right there. So I'll measure from the center to that knob, and that'll give me even a little bit extra. So center to the knob. I'll even be a little more generous than that. Say 2 inches, or should I go 1.5 inches? It's actually technically, it looks like more like 1.5 inches. So 1.5 inches from there. And then you got to account for the 1.5 inches on the other side too. So that would be 8 inches apart. So you got the 5 inches, 1.5 inches, and 1.5 inches makes a total of 8 inches. So that is how far apart we will drill the holes for mounting the posts. So now that we know they'll be 8 inches apart, we now have to figure out where the center of this is so that we can then do that measurement. And I guess the way to do that would be to get my tape measure on here, figure out just how far this is. It's 22 inches. Looks like it's 22 inches exactly. So, which means the center would be 11 inches, correct? And there is our center line. Well, we do have a center line. Oh, sorry for that. So we do actually have a center line, and the center line isn't showing exactly 11 inches, but why don't we just go by the center line there, because I think that's going to be even more accurate. And we'll mark our dead center right there, probably with a pencil, so we can get rid of that line later. Okay, so now I've determined our center line, because matching it up with here and going straight up, I just kind of eyeballed it by hand. Whoa, hello. And we want to go 4 inches from this line on each side. So pick up my tape measure here. And I'm not really sure if I've got, the end of that, if it's real accurate. It's been getting bumped around in my toolbox forever. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the 1 inch mark. Get that lined up there. And then go to 5 inches and mark it off. And then I'll do the same on the other side. And I'm going to put down the camera so I can do this better. Okay, now I have it marked. Now this is very unscientific, as you've probably gathered. It's the way I like to do things, but I'm careful about them. And when I do things like this, they tend to work. And I just want to let you guys know you don't have to be some master builder in order to be able to do stuff, which is kind of why I show you that even a monkey brain like me can do stuff like this. Okay, so now I've got my marks. Now that mark is not, is where the center of these posts are going to be. So I've got that. So I'm going to just set that over here. That tells me where that is, and then I need to mark where the edge of that is right there, where the edge is, and that's where I'll actually be making my cut, not on that line. So I'm gonna get that marked off, and then I'll make my proper cut mark right there. All right, here I go. Or I could just do the intelligent thing and measure from the center here to the edge. And right there, it appears to be 1 1/16 of an inch. And now our final cutting lines have measured, and then I also erased the old line. And I measured both of those to the center line, and they're both exactly 5 1/16 from the center line. So we know it's even and it's correct. So now it's time to break out Mr. Hacksaw again, and really want to be careful because I want to keep a nice straight line. So we're going to take our time with this. Might just come and do, a little hacksaw a little bit of a few days. I am in no hurry here. And after about 20 minutes or so, 15-20 minutes of hacking my brains out from both sides and watching the line pretty carefully, I got it to the bottom here. Sawed on that for just a bit, just to weaken the bottom. Now I think, because it should go along the path of least resistance, just kind of very carefully just kind of do that number, and it should just split nice and clean right along that line. I mean, I may have to come back and, do a little file work, which I'm sure will be the case, but I'm tired of hacking on that saw, so let's see if the easy way will work here. Kind of gently work that. And it looks like the line's nice and clean. It's getting looser. All right, I think we got it, baby. Oh, that's a sticker. And there it is, and we'll just clean that up with a file. And I think we'll be able to put our end cap on. Let's go ahead and get an end cap and see how it do. There's an end cap right there. Should just fit right in there perfectly. And always pry it out a little later. Let me hang on. That's pretty good. And of course we'll be touching up with some black spray paint. That goes without saying, but we'll use a little hammer and tap that in the rest of the way, and it'll look nice. But we need to take it out for right now. Woo! Kind of winded here. And boy, my arm's getting a heck of a workout, but here after about 20 minutes of hacking on this other side, this one's about ready to come. And let's be gentle with it. So I want a nice clean break. It's pretty much ready. I could probably snap it off and be nice and clean right now, but I'd rather kind of just do this and give it every opportunity to give me what I want. I think the trick to doing stuff like this is don't be in a hurry. I mean, I'm already an amateur as it is. Maybe if I were a pro-level builder and all that stuff, I could just knock this stuff out like some of these guys you see here on YouTube. But since I'm not, I think it behooves me to take each step very, very carefully and cautiously, because I also don't have a lot of money. So, because, I'm a DJ as my living. Although I know there's lots of DJs that make great money. I do okay for myself, but I'm not a man of means by any means. There we go. And you stand back and look at what we got. All right, so now the T-bar is done. Come back with the file and clean up those ends. Make sure there's nothing sharp on there. And then we'll be ready to drill the holes for these guys. Yay! Oh, and I did make one other decision about this. I'm getting rid of the rubber washer. I mean, I want something to add some pressure to keep it from coming undone while it's in there, because I don't want this thing loosening up on me. And I don't have any lock washers laying around, at least not ones that fit that. I think I have some smaller ones, but I do have this. I've got some Loctite thread locker, and that should do the job just fine to lock it in there and make sure it doesn't back off. So that's what I'll use. And if I ever have to take it apart, you know, I mean, this isn't made of steel. It'll come apart. So I'm going to take the rubber washer off this other one over here. I am going to get a wire brush on here and maybe a little spray cleaner, and I'm going to, you know, kind of clean up some of the rust on those old bolts right there, just for pride in my work, even though no one will see it. I still don't want old rusty stuff sitting around inside this thing. So, I mean, why? I have it out. I have the opportunity to clean it up and do it right, so why not? All right. And now we file the edges so we don't hurt ourselves all the way around and get it nice and cleaned up. And we do the same around the edges of the posts where we cut them. I have determined where to drill my pilot hole on this side, and I'm going to put the camera down so I can do a good job of drilling it. And we just gradually use larger and larger drill bits. Little bit at a time, just make it a little bit bigger at a time, step it up until our until our bolt can go through the hole. Now our hole is drilled, and I've kind of cleaned up around the edges of the hole with the file and ready to put the first post in. Alright, so I've got my first one in place, and I did make a mistake earlier. I measured from the side instead of the painted end, which was a big mistake. I don't know what I was thinking, so instead I found the easier way to find where I wanted to put it is to just place this on top without the bolt in, because it's already got a hole in it. Hold it in place and take your pencil right down there and swish it around inside the little hole, and that'll tell you exactly where you need to drill. I went and did that, and I had to re-drill the hole just a little further back, and now it's nice and flush, and all I need to do is tighten it down in there, and we're good. I'll back that off. When I'm ready to tighten it down for good, I'm going to back that nut off. I will put some Loctite on it and then tighten it down for good. And we still got the other side to do, but so far it's coming along just fine. Alright, so got my 11mm wrench, got it up in there, and this thing tightened up so good, and just with all the little burrs and everything, they made enough resistance and everything. This tightened down just real good, especially with the slight warping of this. It's adding enough resistance to where I don't need to put any Loctite or lock washer. I'm pretty confident with what's going on here, and that's nice and tight in there. So here's what we got. We got them both on here. I'm going to tighten up that other side, put on all my little end caps here. I do have to come back and hit it with some spray paint, but we'll at least be able to get the lights on there and fire it up and show it in action. And here they are mounted upon them. I mean, I don't even really have to touch up the paint because no one's really going to see that once they're hoisted in the air, but just for my own satisfaction of a job well done, I'm going to do that. So there's the two Gigbars mounted on the shortened T-bar. And let's go ahead and put some electric cables on them and fire them up. I'm not going to pair them as master and slave. Maybe I will. What the heck. And there we are, baby. The dual Gigbar on one stand. Via modifying a double speaker stand mount and shortening it. There it is. I clean up the wires, get a shorter wire in the middle, but you get the idea. There you go. I'm Neil Smith, the Dandy DJ from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, serving a 5-hour radius of the greater Nashville area. Check out my new book. It's called Psst Bride. Here's how to ditch your DJ and all your other wedding vendors too. Available on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and audio book. You guys stay dandy now. Can't wait to try this out at the Girl Scout dance this weekend.